We didn't come this far to only get this far. We're not done.
Ain't no stopping us.
There's no stopping us, because we have been given something that liberates others. There's so many beautiful things that I was given in my childhood, and one of those is this eye and this heart of service. I am not only here to make my own world better. That's going to take people with hearts to see improvement and justice and equity and service, having unreasonable amounts of wealth so they can stop negotiating with the problem and finance a solution. We don't have time to wait for the people with cash who currently have cash.
We don't have time to wait for a saviour. We are the saviour.
Nobody is coming to
say, just us.
Get your pants on over your trousers, get your cape on, and if there's a rescue to be done, if it is to be, it is up to me. This is why we can't do it alone. This is why, and again, shout out to you and your incredible book that is rocking my world. And this whole idea of toxic positivity, we have to recognize how much we've been socialized into the lie of hard work.
Hello and welcome to the Liberated Woman podcast, where my guests and I empower ambitious, mission-driven women like you to break free from toxic productivity and embrace a joyful, satisfying life. I'm your host, Tamu Thomas, author of Women Who Work Too Much, leadership coach and keynote speaker. In each episode, we explore personal and professional growth, featuring insightful conversations with inspiring guests, as well as episodes where I explore topics and answer your questions to support your growth and transformation. If you enjoy the show, please do like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, and share. The more listeners I reach, the more impactful guests I can attract to support your journey. Okay, let's begin. Hello, wonderful people. I am very delighted to be here today with another episode of my revamped, upgraded, up-leveled, evolved podcast, The Liberated Woman. And I am here with Yinka Ewuola. And for me, this woman lives, breathes, exudes being a liberated woman. And I cannot wait to get into all of that. But before I start completely fangirling you in this place, Yinka, please could you share who you are, what you do, and why you do it?
Yes, I can. So, Tamu, thank you so much for having me. I am very excited to be here. I'm going to start with what I do and why. I'll come back to who I am after because they're not quite the same. So I am a business strategist and I support women to create wealth in and through their businesses by helping them to focus on what matters most for the business, which is cash flow and strategy, and what matters most for the business owner, which is mindset and habits. So I do what I do because money is the currency of transformation, and far too few women in this world have the cash that they need to create the outcomes, the equity, the justice, the life and the world that is better for all of us. And so I am really passionate about seeing women create unreasonable levels of wealth so that they can stop negotiating with problems and they can simply finance solutions, because that's how we get stuff done in the world that we live in today. And so while I am definitely not a capitalist by any stretch of the imagination, capitalism is clearly exploitative. There's nothing about me that is exploitative. So I like to say that I'm definitely not trying to win capitalism, but I'm also not trying to lose it either. So I'm not trying to lose capitalism.
Hold on a minute, Yinka, because that was a whole sermon in and of itself. Money is the currency of transformation, unreasonable wealth, not trying to win capitalism, but not trying to lose capitalism either. Can we all just take a pause, inhale that, and then exhale? This is so important. And this is just the intro. When I because I'm sending
um,
invitation for you to be here, I want to impress upon us, and I'm sorry, this is your intro, but I have to insert myself here.
Please go ahead. It's your podcast. Do you think?
Listen, whilst we're here together, it's ours. But I just want to affirm what you're saying by saying to people, there is a massive difference between capitalism and trade.
Yes.
What Yinka is articulating here and what my work is all about, I'm going to sneeze, excuse
Bless you.
me. What Yinka is talking about here and what my work is all about, and the reason why this podcast is called The Liberated Woman, and why I have created a body of work under the umbrella of The Liberated Woman, is because for us as women, especially those of us who have many intersections that go along with our womanhood, we need to liberate ourselves from the systems and structures that keep us spinning our wheels, playing small.
100%.
The latest iteration of that system and structure is this notion about being anti capitalist and about being equitable and ethical.
Mm-hmm.
And what strikes me is that it is majority women who
Mm-hmm.
are taking up space, talking about being ethical. And I am very aware that the conversations around being ethical are not actually ethical. They are very limited and they are rooted in good girl conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
Because the conversation around being ethical says to people like Yinka, myself, and all other women, you can only make enough money for you to just about get out of survival. Any more than that, you are the same as the greedy capitalists who are exploiting people and this planet. And what I know is that when women like me, Yinka, and women who do the type of work we do and have the kind of mission and values we have, when we generate wealth, we are distributing that wealth, not in a foolish way. We are making sure that we are having the cash we need, but we are also ensuring that the people we work with are being paid in a manner that isn't just equitable, it's actually, to be
Abundant.
quite frank,
It's abundant.
sumptuous.
It's abundant. It is one of the things. Thank you, Tammy. And as I said, I will circle back to who I am in
Who
a
you
second.
are,
But
yes.
this is so much of this is so important to the very core of my soul. I am bored. And bored is the operative word. I'm bored of hearing people with privilege speak about this. Okay, Tammy's put her hand up.
I've only put my hand up because this is a testimony. This is
Right,
a testimony because the
right.
people who are talking the most with the ethical business, their salary, their money is secondary. Their salary, their money isn't needed in their household.
Right. And what I would say is that I am the reason why I focus on cash, the reason why I focus on money, the reason why I distinguish between the structures and systems versus trade and, cash and money and all of those pieces of the puzzle is because I have zero interest in my liberation. For me, and what it means to be liberated is about the liberation of others as well. I
Mm-hmm.
I I have zero interest in being the only liberated person. And for me, I've been given a gift. I've been given skills. I work hella hard to hone those skills. My superpower is helping people get stuff done, helping women make more money than they ever thought possible. These are the things I'm good at. And so I use those skills and I use that knowledge to help women to um, view cash holistically, because it is holistic. It is not just financial, it is emotional, it is energetic, it is relational, and to give them a better opportunity to create the life, the desires, the outcomes of their dreams. I'm a
You
big
got me feeling emotions.
Yes, to Mariah. um, and so, yeah, I feel, like I said, I feel really bored listening to people, for example, talking the conversation around ethical in this modern day, without looking at it in context is to me it's out of line. You're talking about ethical when 200-300 years ago your every part of your practices were extractive and exploitative, and you have left a significant gap and divide of wealth, of resources, of infrastructure, and now you want to talk about ethical because everything is okay where you are. I'm not about that life. I see things in a very systemic and holistic way, and I am, some people are like, well, things are too far gone, it's too difficult, we can't make a difference. I don't believe that to be true. I'm blessed to be a blessing, and so I'm gonna make as much difference as I possibly can while I'm here. But I want to make sure that I'm leaving a legacy that makes a difference, so that that change can continue long after I'm gone.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. I just needed a moment to process. So, Yinka, tell me who you are and how who you are led to your beautiful focus on cash.
Okay, so I have many descriptors. First of which will always be I am a Nigerian woman. Don't let
My
the accent
sister.
fool you. So yeah, I'm London born, but I am Nigerian through and through. I am the second child of two of the most amazing humans ever put on this planet. Shout out to my mum and dad. They will definitely hear this episode of the podcast. And yeah, my mum and dad are incredible humans. They took the bravest of decisions to leave everything they knew, to come thousands of miles away from their home and their family to create a better life for themselves and their descendants. And they worked hella hard, and I saw them work so incredibly hard. As I said, I'm the second of four children. Um, I am absolutely an introvert by nature, in a house full of extroverts. We'll talk about that in a second. But um, our house was full of so many beautiful things. I grew up in a house of love. I grew up in a house of hope. I grew up in a house where we were in the idea of being of service was instilled in us, in big ways and small. Um, I grew up in a house with a very strong work ethic. As I said, my parents worked hella hard. But I didn't grow up in a house that had a lot of financial wealth and a lot of financial security.
Mhm.
And so the couching of kind of the pivotal point for me was, I often say that I didn't come from a rich family. So I decided a rich family would come from me. Okay, Tammy's hands are up again.
When are you starting your church or whatever? Because, woman, you are here preaching the good word. Sorry, before we even go anywhere, I just want to say, so I don't know how we connected on Facebook, but we connected on Facebook, and I
Mhm.
connect with people on Facebook, and I don't know how it is the algorithm decided that I needed your good word, and I was just drinking in everything you were saying, and I just thought, this woman is speaking to me. She's speaking to my ancestors. She's speaking to where I come from. She's speaking to my experience, past, present, and future. And Yinka, I have to be honest, sometimes the way you would chew me up with your posts, right? The way, but it was the chewing I needed. It was like literally, listen, all this merry-go-rounding, all this up and
Up
downing,
and down
show
it.
me your cash.
Dig and yeah, exactly.
Like West African parents, and I know other parents will say this as well, will say something like, show me your friends, I'll show you your character.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
got that
yeah.
vibe, like, show me your bank accounts, I will show you your character. And just your post alone. So if anybody relates to this, I think I just want you right now to pause this episode. Don't go too far. Pause this episode, click on the links and check out Yinka's work. If anybody like me came from a background that taught you how to work really hard, but didn't teach you how to work smart and be able to retain and tend to your money, you need to be in contact with Yinka. Now, I know from Yinka's posts alone, I have experienced the vibes of money is the currency of transformation. Because there was something Yinka shared on Facebook that made me like I Friday mornings for me is money care time, and I check my bank accounts and da 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 da. But I started looking at it in a so one of the things that helped me start to turn around my relationship with money was, the energy of money is masculine. I have all kinds of jiggery pokery going on about the masculine because of my own experiences with it. And I thought, well, I'm going to view money as a romantic partner I want to be in partnership with. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not just about what do I want from the money? How am I showing up to
Mm-hmm.
cultivate a loving, nourishing relationship that has got space to grow and expand and all of that kind of jazz?
Mm.
So there was something you shared. I don't know what it is, but I started looking at it differently, and I started utilizing my savings pots in my bank accounts
Mm.
differently, so I
Mm.
could really see the money. So it
Mm.
wasn't all clumped in together, and it was all the one thing. And something that I got from Paula Perry, who also works in the financial space years ago, is money needs purpose.
Yeah.
And then you back that because you say money is a servant.
Yeah.
So I'm like, right, I need to put the money in these places because it needs to know where it's going. It can't be like
Absolutely.
a sat nav that doesn't know where on earth it's going.
It needs assignments. If you imagine yourself to be a general, money is your army. And your army needs to know, it needs instructions from the general. The general has the overall plan for um for whatever the fight is, but you need to send your soldiers out to work. And that's the thing. People have this oh my gosh, I have money, so I need to hold on to it and keep it. I'm not suggesting you spend all the money you have, but in the work that I do in my own life, I plan, I sit down each month, with, and again, I'm teaching this to my children as well. We assign our cash to zero. Everything needs a plan. Some of that will be saved. Some of that will be spent. Some of that will be invested. Some of that will be invested in education. Some of that will be assigned for play and joy and pleasure. But everything needs to have a role, because ultimately we only get one wild and precious life. And so there is no purpose in us waiting only for the greater later. Today gets to be great. And part of the day being great is allowing the army to get to work. Like, send your soldiers on assignment. Let's go.
Are you Yoruba?
Yes, we are.
Of course you are. Of course you are. I couldn't possibly love this more. Okay. So, what led you to be like in this world, in this coaching, mentoring world, professional, personal development world of uh, this amount of sales? I had this launch, blah, 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 blah. What led you to say, that's all cool, but show me your cash though? What is it that led you to specifically focusing on cash flow?
Okay. Great question. This answer is in three parts. The first part was when I was dragged into business, when my mum was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she was, trying to fight for her life and fight for her money. And at the time, I was an investment banker. Because I had decided mentally, I didn't come from a rich family, so rich family is going to come from me. I need to go learn about money. So I was like, let me
Mhm.
go to the place where they understand money. Spoiler alert, they don't know anything about money and investment banking, but we'll come back to that in a second. So the second thing, so my mum is fighting for her life. She's trying to fight for her money. I'm like, no. This is too many fronts upon which you are trying to battle. God forbid you lose these battles. So you fight for your life. We will fight for the cash. God's so good. My mum is healthy and well with us today. She
Amen.
kicked cancer's butt. We are so grateful to have her. And might I say, she is really living on this black don't crack life. Like, she looks younger now than she ever has. She's beautiful. Anyway, so
Grateful for that inheritance.
grateful for
These are
that.
those genes.
Grateful for that every single day. We have a conversation with Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs have come along because we've had some issues with our VAT. and then we have a bill to pay, and the bill is due as the man is asking us for it, and we don't have the cash in the bank until Friday. And I said, don't worry, we'll pay you on Friday, we'll raise you a check. And he was like, no, I need that money today. And I said, well, I can't pay you today because we don't have the cash today. And he's like, well, then your business is dead. And I like burst into tears. I was like, what do you mean it's dead? Like, you're standing in our office. We have awards. We have clients. Next door is our staff. You're in our office. We have all the things that a business and he was like, no, if you don't have any cash, you do not have a business. And then I was like, oh my God, I came here to help my mum with this business and I've killed her business. And
so you went to work for your mum's business?
Yeah. So I stepped into her business to support her. She was in hospital. She was, recovering from surgery, going through chemo, radio, all of the things. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've killed the business because we have no cash. And I said, I can't. So I explained to him, look, you cannot do this. There is a woman who is fighting for her life. Long story short, he was like, okay, fine. I will take this payment on Friday. And you live to fight another day. But please be aware that all the things that you told me, we have clients with that. None of that is the business. The cash in the bank is what keeps this business alive. So that was part one.
Wait. It doesn't matter that you've got an office. It doesn't matter that you've got staff. It doesn't matter you've got inventory. It doesn't matter that you've got clients. Your cash awards, in the bank.
The best reputation in the business. If you have no cash, you have no business. And that's why the merry-go-round of I had this excellent launch, I had sales, I have clients, I did all of those things are brilliant, and none of them can be spent in the supermarket.
You better go and ask JS Sainsbury's.
Ask how are you going to spend? How are you going to tell your supermarket, your mortgage company, whatever the bills are, the things that you, and again, this is where the privilege comes in, because many of these people are not using this stuff to pay their mortgages. Some people are, some people aren't. But therein lies the point. In having that really stark realization that despite the trappings of the business, despite the business looking alive and flourishing and having all these awards, not having cash in the bank was going to be the end of us. That was like check mark number one. Mm-hmm. Check mark number two was, okay, so we got that, we paid that. And I was determined to make sure that we were never going to be in that stressful situation again, and B, that the business was going to thrive and flourish, and I was really going to be able to help my mum. So I began the process of learning, and I've been in these lean, mean internet streets for quite some time. I've learned from pretty much every big name trainer, business coach out there. I've done pretty much every course, and what I was finding is that their methods are important and helpful, and we weren't getting the results the way they were saying. And I know myself well enough. I'm like a ridiculously type A, straight A student, graduated top of my class in a group of 600 people in my degree. So I'm not a fool, and I'm an intelligent person, and I am also an action focused person. Mm-hmm. So I knew that I was applying it, and I knew that I wasn't seeing the result. I basically figured out that something was missing. What I then realized part of what was missing was the unspoken, what I call wife at home effect, that so many of these men have as an underpinning to their businesses. So the women were the safety net that was, creating this mental and physical runway for their lives, for their businesses. And don't get me wrong, more fire to them. Everyone should use the privileges that they have. We are all, as parents, we are working hard to give our kids privileges. I have no objection to privileges. What I do have is an objection to unrecognized privilege, and then telling other people that they're not getting the results you're getting because you're working harder or you're smarter. That was not the case. So I kept seeing the things. I keep seeing, taking the instructions, seeing slightly different results. And then I began to get a better understanding of what the words meant. So I've had an X launch, I've made these sales, I've got this revenue. And then I would start going behind the scenes and hearing that, 30%, the industry average in the personal and business development space is 30% chargebacks. So people having £1 million launches are often given hundreds of thousands of pounds back to people. So, it was these things that enabled me to really kind of come back to first principles. And, for me, I'm always minded that what makes you smart or what makes you good is never the sexy, complicated, advanced things. It's the basics. One of my mentors always says, the masters never don't do the basics. So I was like, what are the basics here? And the basics is the cash that gets into the bank, the cash that you keep, the cash that comes in, the cash. And so I was like, I began to look across the marketplace and realize that no one was talking about cash. Nobody. Like everyone was talking about sales, clients, leads, and I'm like, but we all want cash. So is this a euphemism? Why is it like the elephant in the room? And that's when I realized that actually there is what is not being addressed is the mindset around cash, the mindset of being able to talk about cash unapologetically, owning your desires unapologetically. That's still not being addressed. That's why people are like, oh, focus on the impact and the income will follow. No, that's internet advice number one that goes in the bin, along with charge your worth. That can also go in the bin. These are pieces of information that we're being told that are literally causing damage because we will not address the truth and the reality, A, of running a business, B, of the socialization and erroneous thinking that we've received around money, and three, the systems that we are being made to operate in that are causing lack, causing distress, causing anxiety, and causing businesses to fail at a rate of 90% going out of business in 5 years or less. I was
Well,
like,
that's what they're designed to do.
yep,
Like, people
Houston,
don't
we have a
understand.
problem. And I'm
That's
like,
what they're
I'm not,
designed to do.
yeah, I'm not about to continue to be part of the problem because like many women like me were entrepreneurs of necessity. We could not afford for our businesses to fail. And therefore I was like, okay, not only am I not going to allow my business to fail, but I'm not going to allow anyone else's business to fail on my watch if I can help it.
Yinka, so I have a group coaching program called Thrive, Flourish and Prosper. And in the beginning of that, and also it's in my membership, the Life and Business Sanctuary, at the beginning, there is a piece of work where I invite people to complete their finances. I invite people to be very clear about their current income and expenditure so they can be clear about what they need the cash they need to create now. And then the next invitation is for them to get clear about their ideal life from what they can see at this point in time, because it's dynamic, it's not static, what their ideal life costs. The resistance, and people don't do it. And I've got ADHD, okay? I've got ADHD. This kind of mathematical stuff is not my forte. It takes a lot. And also, I'm terrible with maths, which may or may not be true. It may be my...
Okay, I'm a hands up you there. Like you're saying I am is our most potent statement of expression.
I get that.
Please stop aligning yourself. Like math, first of all, math is a skill. And what I would say to you is that if maths was what was required to be good at money, then the wealthiest people in the world would be mathematics professors, and they're not. So that's the first thing I want to say. But the second thing I want to say is that whether you're good at numbers or maths or not, the fact is that isn't what is required around the topic of money. So just please stop aligning yourself to
Okay. I
something
will
that
rephrase
is
it.
productive for you. Yes, go ahead.
My relationship
Yes.
with that stuff
Yeah.
is jacked.
Yeah. Okay.
Because of my experiences.
Yeah.
And because it is jacked, because of my experiences, I designed these forms so that I could get clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Because my previous experience was avoidance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you don't understand it. It makes you feel uncomfortable. Avoid.
Yeah.
So when I first came into the coaching industry, everything was about six figures at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was about six figures. I had come from being a local authority social worker. The most I had earned was like close to £47,000 a year. That was a salary. When I was locuming, it was more. But by the time you pay tax, it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, first thought was, what do people need that money for? That was the first thought because of my background,
Yeah.
etc. And then I thought, gosh, it's going to be impossible for me to more than double what I was earning.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that like service managers and whatever else in local authorities were earning like 60K if they were lucky, that kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So there was lots of conditioning
Yeah.
that made it feel impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought to myself, even though I kind of do my thing, I need specificity in the
Yeah.
first place to then go and do my thing.
100%.
So I thought to myself, let me work out exactly how much my life is costing me right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I know how much I want to earn. Because when I first started my business, it wasn't a side hustle.
Mm-hmm.
I had to do my business on the side of working full time as an independent social worker because I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't afford to leave and start my business. And I found that I just wasn't making the money I needed to make, regardless of what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, you don't know how much money you need to make, which is why you're not making the money.
Yeah.
So I went through with a fine tooth comb. I didn't think about what I spend. I went through my bank account.
Yeah.
I went and saw what was actually going into and coming out of my account.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, right, okay, so I'm not making the money I need to make to stop doing both. So I need to work out how I need to do that. My second thing was because I love future self visioning, because when I do that, I just bring the future closer because I start to embody the
Absolutely.
behaviors and the beliefs. And I thought, right, I'm going to have a look in Rightmove for my ideal house at
Mm-hmm.
this moment in time. How much does that cost? Rightmove tells you what the council tax would be. You can click on and you can find out approximately what the utilities would be. I did that for the car, the investments, the savings for me, my child, all the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about the stuff my daughter likes doing, the things she appreciates, all of that, everything was accounted for.
Yeah.
And I could see that this 100K I was so terrified of, to live the life I wanted to live like then, I needed to pay myself,
Mm-hmm.
not make,
Yeah.
I needed to pay myself £127,000 per annum. That's what I needed to be able to pay myself from my business.
Wow.
That just changed the game. It didn't feel like some nebulous far off thing over there.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't just talking from the top of my head.
Yeah.
And it meant that I had all kinds of things in my head about it's unnecessary, it's
Mm-hmm.
greed,
Mm-hmm.
blah, blah, blah. All of that dissipated because as you were talking about giving money an assignment,
Mm-hmm.
I gave my money an assignment by
Yeah.
understanding exactly what I needed.
100%.
I did that at the beginning of the year. It was 2021, and I was ready to be really dismissive of myself and tell myself that 2020 was rubbish. I was ready to tell myself off. And as I was about to do that, I got a flashback to January 2010 when I was crying in my boss's office because my child, I felt like I was making her work full time because I was working full time, yada, 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 things were going on. And that at that point in time, I made a vow that by the time my child was going to secondary school, I would not be working for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I would be working for myself and I would be available and I would be making money
Mm-hmm.
so that we had spaciousness financially, emotionally, joyly, all the stuff, holistic. So I was able to see that what I had achieved in a decade was astounding, and that I had done that all from subconscious. I wasn't conscious about what I was doing, but my subconscious was really driving me. So I gave myself a break because I realized that 2020 wasn't rubbish after all when I looked at it in that context. And it just gave me a real beautiful drive. And I was like, cool, this is the money I need to make. Again, not as much intentionality as was necessary, but I was just driven. Like it was almost like there's a grime song that I listen to when I need to get pumped. I think it's by Roll Deep. It's a Wiley. Anyway, this I will not lose. Never. No way, not ever. That was my soundtrack to 2021. And as I did my financial reviews, but I wasn't really clocking everything as a whole. I was looking at it as a month.
Mm-hmm.
To get to December and seeing that I had cruised past that six figures and didn't even consciously realize it.
Love it.
Right? But Yinka, where was the cash? where was the cash? Because my life in that year didn't look like I was making, it wasn't 127, but it didn't look like I was making over 100K.
Hmm. And therein lies the challenge that of the lack of knowledge, the lack of understanding in education, because we're often told about top line. So we're told, six-figure sales, seven-figure business. That's top line. That's what came in. I mean, in the first instance, thank you very much to our payment providers. If someone pays you £1,000, you don't get £1,000. They will take their money before it even gets to your
Yep,
bank account. Like,
yep,
you're already going to pay that. So,
yep.
and but therein lies because it's not, the issue is not only the amount of money you make, it is the amount of money you retain. It's the bottom line. What happens after everything has been spent? And so for me, this is where there is an importance around financial literacy, but it is also a monetary. There needs to be monetary literacy, because money is not only financial, and so one of the big challenges that I see, and part of why, people often talk about what I do as financial, and I always correct it and say it's holistic. And the reason for that is because so much of financial knowledge and education is playing not to lose rather than playing to win. They spend
Oh,
so much time helping you to manage down your expenses. Excellent, fantastic. But the thing is, you can't out earn an income problem. You're never going to get those expenses down to zero. And so the other side of the equation, which is often missing, is, well, how the hell do I actually make more money? How do I recognize the value that I can put in the marketplace? How do I communicate that value? How do I ensure that the value that I have is valued, so that it will be treated as valuable and I will be paid abundantly for it? These are the conversations that are not being had in the financial expression of things. So what you described there, as you were talking, I was listening and thinking, yep, these are all of my little, like, Yinkerisms, as they say in my world. You made the money matter, so you made money that matters.
yeah,
You won't you For those of us who didn't grow up with wealth, there is a an unlearning and a relearning that has
mm,
to take place.
mm-hmm,
But more often than not, as you rightfully pointed out, we're not following a blueprint. We didn't see someone do it and we're not copying them. We
yeah,
are creating from imagination. We are creating sometimes from delusion. We're creating from blocking out social messaging, blocking out recurring misery and fear and all of the things that are not going to serve us.
yeah.
And so the opportunity that we have, and like I said, for me, we live in the most incredible time in human history to generate wealth. And we also live in a time where the world is a dumpster fire right now,
Mm,
because those who have wealth are spending in line with their values. We need more people with our values to have wealth, to change the whatever it is that they've created. And that's
yeah.
the thing. I don't have any judgment for how they spend their money. It's their money. They should spend it in line with their values. If I want the world to be different, then I need to spend in line with my values, which means I need to learn how to create cash and then spend in line with what is important to me.
A whole word, and I'm not even going to allow myself to go down that road too much, because I want to shift the conversation a little bit, segueing off that to, can we talk about the complexity of creating liberating amounts of cash? Can we talk about because you talked about your history of your parents, your childhood being rich with the care you needed, but not necessarily being rich with the finances.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the complexity of that liberation journey of being like first generation of unreasonable wealth creation
Hmm.
without a blueprint,
Hmm.
with possible scarcity programming
Hmm.
and all of that kicking in the background, and the impact it has on you as you are on your cash liberation journey?
Absolutely. So the first thing that I would say is that it I was watching a movie with my husband, and we were laughing about, mummy issues and daddy issues is like $1 billion trillion industry. Like, three quarters of what we're all doing to sort stuff out is, comes in either mummy issues or daddy issues format. And what I would say there is that the first thing, when it comes to making a decision to be different from what you received as a child, that has to come with so much courage, because most people feel that choosing different indicts what you got, and it doesn't. As I am very specific in how I talk about my childhood, because I believe a couple of things to be true. Number one, my parents, as most parents did, did the very best they could with what they had. Like, two or three generations before my parents, we come from an agricultural space, so there wasn't like formal, like my parents, the leap that they created from the childhoods they had were radical. They were what they did so much more, for us than we could possibly imagine, looking at where they started from. And so I am ever grateful to them. Like, in a way that I can't explain, and in a way that actually makes me feel very, very emotional. They did the most, like the very best that they could. And I want different. And I want different for my children, but I want different for me, not because what I had was bad. And most people have this idea in their mind, and it's very cultural for us, that they don't embrace the idea that you don't have to be sick to want to get better. And so when you want to get better, or when you want better, it's seen as as an indictment, or a statement of problem about what was there before. And it's not that at all, but it can be very triggering for those who love you, for those who are around you. And so the reason why I raise that is because I have always been very different to my siblings and family. I'm very introverted. We are an extroverted family from an extroverted culture. So I have always been a confirmed weirdo from day dot. Like,
Yeah.
what is wrong with Yinka was if they had a pound for every time that was said, they'd have probably been wealthy. And so that the first thing to say is that the embracing of your desire for different is something that takes so much courage. In a world that tells women that their desires are frivolous, their desires are to be ignored, their desires are to be, seen as a specific way for boys or men, or the male gaze, or so, like, to be everybody else's backbone. Like, the compliment of a lifetime for women is that she's selfless.
Ugh.
Can we talk about that word, please? Selfless?
Yes.
Really? Wow. And so, yeah, so that's the context in which we did then do this work, because we recognize how much socialization we have had to do and be the opposite of what we're working to do and be. So then comes the radical responsibility, because you have been given this desire for a reason, and you can spend your life denying it. You can spend your life acting like you don't really want it, and you will make yourself miserable, and potentially give yourself mental health issues. Or you can take the brave decision to own the desire, to believe that you've been given that desire for a purpose. And even though it looks impossible and there's no way on the planet, and you can't even see anything like what you're trying to create, you then have to do the work to believe that it's been given to you to make it real, and you can make it possible. Now, that's like 3 sentences that accounts for like 20 years of self-development,
Yeah.
and tears and blood and sweat. And what that gives us is a very humbling experience. This money thing is the most humbling thing I've ever encountered, because I have to continually admit that I don't know, or I'm not sure, or I'm afraid, or there's a lack of knowledge. And then I have to, or I'm meeting a limit when it comes to my resources. And then the radical responsibility then invites me every single time to use my resourcefulness to pick up on where my resources leave off. And so for me, this work, this focus, as I said, has been the making of me and has changed me because, as I said, I'm committed. Like, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
mum of three sons. Um, Raising three black boys in London
Mm.
is not for the faint-hearted. Like, I send them out with prayers, and I need to know where they are at all times. I'm like,
Yeah.
and in this city, you don't want the gangs to see them. You don't want the police to see them either. You don't like
Yeah.
there are no friends, and
Yeah.
so we are constantly on high alert, and we can talk about the cortisol and the stress response on that. But what I will say is that what I can give my sons and what I intend to give the generations to come from is some of the burden that I intend to alleviate some of the burden that we had.
Mm-hmm.
The burden of having to worry about your parents and not truly asking for the things you want because you're worried that they can't afford it and you don't want them to feel bad because you see that they're working really hard, and all of those things, those subliminal messages that we were given. We were never told not to ask. We just saw
Yeah.
what happened when we did ask, so we
Yeah.
stopped asking.
And I just would like really want to point out real quick is that we are hardwired for connection.
Mm,
We pick up on subtle cues,
hmm.
whether it's a shift in the breath, the eye contact, a change of the body movement, a bit of a contraction. Like we can sense all of that. And the younger you are as a child, the more you're able to pick up on those things because you haven't been socialized out of your primal skill,
Agreed.
your primal skills. So you're able to pick up on that stuff real quick.
Right.
But Yinka, please share with us how having that realization and owning that for yourself
Hmm.
and wanting to create a different present and future for your descendants,
Hmm.
how does that sometimes butt up against what you've experienced growing up, like what you've witnessed? Because
Hmm.
one of the things I work a lot with my clients is reconciling the difference between, like, a lot of my clients come from a working class background.
Hmm.
Their parents worked really hard, so
Hmm.
maybe by the time they were in secondary school they were living a middle class
Hmm.
lifestyle, but the
Yeah.
parents still had a working class mindset,
Mindset.
or
Yeah.
the parents are still working class, they're middle class with a working class mindset.
Hmm.
So in my book, one of the things I talked about is a client I was working with who was making dough, right? She
Hmm.
was making bank.
Hmm.
Yet if she needed it was always, I need a new pair of trainers or
Yeah.
whatever it was. And this incident, and I had permission, that's why I shared it. Um, on this instance, it was a pair of trainers, but she was looking at the trainers she had already to make sure they were sufficiently worn
Hmm.
to justify her buying these
A new
new
pair.
trainers.
Yeah.
And that was literally her West African dad. When they would ask for something, he
Yeah.
would be like, "Do you need it?"
Yeah. Do you
And
need it?
I'm not advocating for, you know, part of my thing is, trying to be sustainable and all of that, not just for ourselves, but also for the planet. So I'm not talking about, like, ridiculous Imelda Marcos levels of footwear,
Footwear.
but it was just the fact that this woman had to justify by checking whether or not she really needed it. And she
And
was hoarding.
absolutely. And need it's a very interesting energetics around the word need as opposed to the word desire. And to answer the question, because I like this conversation is so lush, like we could do this all day, and but also to get very specific, everything that we have been taught about money, if we are not experiencing money how it truly is, which is abundant, and if we don't recognize that the money that we are experiencing in our lives, in our experience, so our experience of wealth is a reflection of our own internal understanding of our own intrinsic wealth. So understanding as opposed to factual being, because factually and in truth, every single human is priceless, and there is no value that you can put on human life, and therefore understanding those things. I always talk about the fact that if you're not experiencing cash the way it is, it's because there is a knowledge gap. There is something that you do not know or understand about the nature of and the way cash works. And so, but then we were like, when I first came to that realization, I was like, how can that be possible when I've got money in we have cash in our pockets and purses every day. We're experiencing cash all the time. How do we not understand it? And that was the first humbling experience of this entire journey for me, was that proximity doesn't equate to mastery. Like it's literally how most of us are with money is like the racist person with the black friend trying to tell you that they can't be racist because they have a black friend. Like I can't not understand money because I've got some in my pocket. But if you don't have what you need to create the thriving, abundant life, then you don't understand it. It's around, but you do not understand it. And as someone who likes to understand things, as someone who, you give me a textbook, I used to read the dictionary for fun when I was a kid. I do not like not understanding things. I don't like it. And so it was a very confronting, even of my own self identity, in terms of, am I willing to be a student? Am I willing to say, I don't know anything, so that I can go back to basics, so that I can actually begin to see how this works? And so it butts up against, as I said, my own self-identity, our social programming and conditioning, our understanding of what it means, as I said, to want something different from the people that you love, from your first family. And therefore, are you saying that what you had wasn't good enough? Are you saying, and because we are hardwired for connection, none of us want to be kicked out the tribe. So you ask yourself, if I go on this journey, will they still love me tomorrow? To quote the song lyrics. And so it's the most courageous thing that you can do, to take the decision to master cash and to really understand what it is going to take for you to not only lift yourself and the generations to come out of poverty and lack, experientially, but to lift them out of those same paradigms mentally. It's a very brave undertaking. Sometimes you don't feel equal to the task. Sometimes you want to give up. Sometimes you
How do you get around that? How do you put yourself in a position where, when that comes in, like, oh my goodness, I can't live up to the task, how do you put yourself in a position where you see it as a challenge that you're able to overcome, as opposed to this is a stop sign?
There is no stopping, Tamu. I got breath in my lungs. I got fire in my belly. I got a glint in my eye. I It would be remiss of me to overlook the privileges that I enjoy in my life today because of the blood, sweat, and tears of those that came before me. Like it's not that is I'm not available for that, and therefore it's absolutely normal. It's fine. It is reasonable to be daunted, to be tired, to be overwhelmed. Um, in my spaces, one of the incredible ladies that I support, she just ran the London Marathon for the first time, and she was telling us about mile 19. So you are too far in to go back to the beginning, and you're still quite far from the end. And she hit the wall of a lifetime, and she was sobbing, and she wanted to give up. And she reports that her beautiful son, who she was running in honor of, met her at mile 19 and congratulated her and hugged her, and they ran the last 5.5 miles together, to get her to the end. Tamu, there's no way on this planet, with everything that you've gone through, with that I've gone through, we didn't come this far to only get this far. We're not done. And so
Ain't no stopping us.
there's no stopping us, because we have been given something that liberates others. And remember, I said this at the start, like, as I said, there's so many beautiful things that I was given in my childhood. And one of those is this eye and this heart of service. I am not only here to make my own world better. I could do that, and I could do that with a lot less effort. But the nature of human beings is such that if I was the only person to be better, I would be creating issues with myself or with those around me. I'm not going to go and live on an island. Even if I wanted to live on an island, introverts unite, but even if I wanted to live on an island, there are too many important things to be done. There are, we've got some of the biggest challenges the world has ever known at play right now. And what is going to take that? That's going to take people with hearts to see improvement and justice and equity and service, having unreasonable amounts of wealth so they can stop negotiating with the problem and finance a solution. We don't have time to wait for the people with cash who currently
We
have
don't have
cash.
time to wait for a savior. We are the
Right.
savior.
Nobody is coming
Justice
to
is
say,
just us.
get your
Justice
pants
is
on
just
over
us.
your trousers, get your cape on, and if there's a rescue to be done, if it is to be, it is up to me. And therefore, this is the reason why, coming back to what you had said a little bit earlier on, this is why we can't do it alone. This is why, like, and again, like, shout out to you and your incredible book that is like rocking my world. And this whole idea of like toxic positivity, we have to recognize how much we've been socialized into the lie of hard work. Wealthy people, like, and this is the thing, so much so that I own, like, in my own paradigm of thinking, work is when it's effective. Everything else is waste. And so you're not working, you're wasting. Because if you're working and you're not getting results, then you're wasting time, you're wasting effort, and you're wasting energy. But they want you to keep working hard. They want you to keep not getting the result. The merry-go-rounding that we talked, that serves a certain group of people. But I'm not about that life. There are too many people that require a different way of this world being. And like I said, if it's gonna be like, I'm gonna do my part, other people are doing their part too. And so, yeah, don't, like, if this is not all sunshine and rainbows. I cry probably more than most people, and definitely more than people imagine. And I'm also not going to allow that to deter me. Those emotions inform me. They help me. They serve me. They tell me when I'm tired and I need to rest. I don't. I'm available for the full gamut of emotions. That is evidence of living. So I'm good with it.
My I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know what to do with myself hearing all of that. It's utterly beautiful. And I could just keep talking and keep talking because I feel like we've just scratched the surface. But, people have got things to do. So we're going to have
Yes, they
to
have.
wrap this conversation up and maybe have a part two or have an event. Or have an event, one
Indeed.
of the two, or both,
Or
because
both, yeah.
there's abundance around here. There was so much that you said that was utterly beautiful and really resonates with me and my work. I really thank you for your generosity and for sharing so powerfully. It's been a really powerful conversation. And it's definitely liberation is not liberation if it's just for us. That's something else entirely. So I'm going to take us to my final three questions that
Hmm.
I will be asking all guests on this podcast, which really speaks to the fact that liberation is not just for us alone. So starting with the personal,
Hmm.
please could you share an actionable step our listeners can take today towards their own personal liberation and well-being, and obviously I'm going to ask for it to be related to their cash.
Right. I do. I have a couple of steps actually. Number one is to recognize that awareness gives you choice and choice gives you freedom. But nothing, there is no freedom that can come without awareness. So get aware about your money. Please open your banking app. Please have a look at how much money you have now. Have a look when you are looking, have a look at what stories you're telling yourself about the numbers. If you're seeing the numbers and you're like, oh, it's not enough, therefore I am. Again, that's that ever so powerful phrase. Telling yourself stories about yourself when the bank account doesn't tell you about yourself, it tells you about your money. Have a look. And so give yourself the awareness. Become aware of what you're spending. Become aware of how you are showing up in terms of income generation and actually making money. have become aware of whether you are in what I like to call damsel in distress energy, where you are constantly waiting for someone to pay you, waiting for a client to come around, waiting and waiting, like Baccarat style, wishing and hoping and thinking and praying and planning and no, like that damsel in distress energy will kill your business. It will kill your career. You have to ensure that you become aware of what has where you are right now, because that informs you of what you've been doing, and become aware of what you want, because you can have anything you want, but we start from where we are. And so that allowing yourself to become aware, honestly, is 80% of the work. Because once you're aware for example, where there are shortfalls in how you've been showing up, whether you've been avoiding seeing how you've been spending your money, whether you've been avoiding making that call to action, making those offers for cash, actually, being diligent, collecting the cash, that awareness allows you to have the information you need to start making choices in line with what you want to create.
Gorgeous. I'm not even going to talk because I'm going to take us left, right, and centre. So the next one is, how can individuals contribute to the collective liberation and empowerment of their communities?
Such a great question. And what I would say is to recognize that, as I said, money is the currency of transformation. It isn't good or bad. And it doesn't, you know, there's a paradigm of the fact that there are no good or bad people. There are just people acting in line with their values and their desires and, their distorted view of the world, whatever. But what I will say is that we cannot give from an empty cup. So the most powerful thing that you do to liberate your community is to create wealth in yourself, and then to spend in line with your community and heart service-based values. You creating wealth and abundance for yourself, you then become the model. You become the model for thriving. You become the model for someone who is community minded and has this incredible heart to see other people lifted and is also wealthy. You become the model for a regulated nervous system. You become the model for emotional sobriety. You become the model to demonstrate that it is possible to have all the things, to have the wealth, to have the holistic well-being, to have the opportunity to have abundance, and then to really create impact and change for others as well. And so the community liberation begins with practical, tangible, individual liberation through the lens of being community and service minded.
And the final one, what are some systemic changes you believe are essential for achieving true liberation and equity for all? And I just want to caveat that I know that it's a bit delulu. I know that that is a utopian ideal, but as you have shared with us,
Yeah,
those
sure.
delulu utopian ideals are worthy ideals to be going for. So how can we support what systemic changes do you believe are essential for achieving true liberation and equity for all? How can our listeners support those changes?
I think the education system is one where I don't believe that systemic change is the Lulu at all. I think it takes a different way of thinking about things. So I think the issue around the education system is important. Right now, we are giving the money conversation to the finance people. And as I said before, so much of the finance industry, even in the education terms, is built on scarcity. It's built on, as I said, it's not showing people how to play to win. It is showing people how to play, not to lose. And the challenge with that is you can't win a game if you never play to win. You will always be in defense. So I think the education system is really important, and having abundance based money conversations, recognizing that money is not only financial, I think is really important. But the other piece that for me is so, so powerful. So I keep hearing about all of the different gaps, the pay gap, the gender pay gap, the wealth gap, the pension gap, the investment gap, all of these gaps. And for me, I say this often, in the organization that I am building, there will not be a gender gap, the pay gap. There won't be a pension gap. I'm purposely going to find a pregnant woman. I'm going to hire her when she's pregnant. I'm going to lavish her with so much love, because when I became pregnant, I remember how I was treated, and I remember how unbelievably traumatic that experience was, and how terrible I was made to feel. And I remember saying to myself, I am never going, as long as it's on my watch, as long as they're in my organization, no other woman will ever go through that experience on my watch. But therein lies the opportunity, because for me, if I'm building this organization that is financially abundant, that is creating an abundance of wealth, then I can completely eradicate the gender pay gap, the wealth gap, the pension, like for the people I work with. And as I said, then it becomes the model, because I am minded that when you reduce that inequality, it changes how people get to show up. It changes. I am minded, and I'm excited to be given the opportunity to test this, that my organization will be wealthier because I base it on equity, because I choose to pay people abundantly, because I don't do the bare minimum when it comes to taking care of employees, because I ask questions about supply chain and making sure that they are also behaving in equitable, ethical manner, and I vote with my pounds. And so for me, I understand obviously that systemic is broad and wide, but we get to effect broad and wide change. Again, starting with the individual and the things that you control. And so for me, as I said, I am really excited, because in creating and amassing an unreasonable amount of wealth for myself, and for those who are on this journey alongside me, we're creating a network of incredibly wealthy women who want to see the world better and have the cash to make that happen. And yeah, it's going to take a lot of cash. That's the reason we're not stopping now, because while we have a lot of cash, there's still a lot more cash that's needed, and there's a lot more cash that we desire to acquire, because there's a lot more things we want to do. And so I'm a genuine believer that we do get to create systemic change, even through starting with our individual opportunities, because we create new models and new paradigms and new ways of being. And that definitely appeals to my action taking nature. So yeah, it's not gonna, it may not happen through parliament, but ultimately systems are more than just laws and politics. Systems
We
are
uphold the
upheld,
systems.
upheld by mindsets and paradigms. And so that's where I am excited to change that game.
Oh, I love that so much. I love that so much. I want to say something, but I'm not going to say it because it's the end. It's the end. Yinka, thank you so much for your time, your heart, your energy, your candor. I know that this episode is going to be of deep, deep service to many. This episode will be out during the week of the 24th of June. That's when I'm launching this podcast.
Amazing.
So bearing that in mind, is there anything people can do to be able to get more Yinka-isms, learn how to partner with their cash, master their cash, in fact, be the general of their cash?
Yeah.
Where can people connect with you further and take this journey deeper?
So socials, I am active on socials daily. LinkedIn is my primary platform of choice, although I have presences on Facebook, Instagram, X. I'm also on Twitter, but we can have that conversation another time. Find me on social, drop me an email, hello@callisickness.com. And yeah, I do have, different resources. I have programs and, work at different levels with different people at different stages of business and side hustling. I'm minded that whatever is going on in your world, this wealth thing, this wealth get, it's for all of us. It really is, once we decide it is. So yeah, if you've decided it is and you want to talk further, hit me up. Let me know you came from here. I have a little something special for your audience, for anyone who does hit me up as a result of hearing me on here. So awesome.
Yinka, thank you so much. Please do hit up Yinka. Until the next time, take beautiful care of yourselves. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me on the Liberated Woman podcast. Your time and attention is valued. I hope you found today's conversation insightful, inspiring, and even galvanizing. If you enjoyed the episode, please like, rate, review, subscribe, comment, and share. Like many things in our digital experience, the algorithm rules, so your interaction is vital. Your support helps me reach more listeners and attract impactful guests. Tune in for more empowering discussions and practical tips to help you live life on your own terms. Until next time, I'm Tamu Thomas, reminding you to embrace your joy. Podcast produced by me, Tamu Thomas, edited by Biongolia, podcast music by James Anderson.